Welcome to Carrying Wayward, a supernatural podcast for fans who aren't ready to let go and newcomers to the series who are ready to jump in. I'm Drew Schulman.
And I'm Marie Vigourou. In this episode, we're diving into Supernatural Season 8, Episode 22, Clip Show. Let's get this show on the road. So before we get started this week, we need to announce that we're going to have a little bit of a hiatus before we start Season 9. We just wanted a little bit of time to figure out how we want to move forward with Season 9, and obviously we are going to be finishing Season 8, so this episode and the next one. And then we do have some specials planned, and we'll be releasing those every second week. We're not sure yet exactly how long we're going to be on hiatus. In the meantime, Drew and I each have some really cool projects that you might be interested in. And Drew, why don't you tell us where people can find you?
For those who may not have continued following along since Mary and I got to be guests on the Gateleapers podcast, I've been back on several times to cover a range of fandoms. I think I will appear in a few more coming up, and I have a few to announce, but some that will appeal to listeners if they want to hear a little bit of me in the downtime is the Sailor Moon episode or Avatar: The Last Airbender. There's a bunch more, like I said, and very exciting. I've been invited to be a guest on their first ever live episode on September 21st. So if you want to know more about that, as always, I'm on Twitter at BoxlessThought and the Gateleapers at Gateleapers on Threads and Instagram. So you can find out when that's happening or be reminded. And I'm sure I'll be talking about it nonstop when we get closer to it.
That's amazing. So just make sure also to put it on Twitter so that we can also let people know there and let people know in the server. I'm sure that people will be on board. You can find me on Twitter at MaryTurner_, and I also just started a Hannibal podcast with Jeremy Greer from Monster of the Week called Rude Eats. And you can find us on Twitter at Rude Eats and go to rudeeats.cool to give us a listen. It's a pretty sinister feast, and we're always looking for more dinner guests. Ha ha ha.
So excited because love listening to you and love listening to him, and it's not spoilerful, so I'm free to listen to it. I just have to start watching another show.
There are several moments, especially in the first episodes, where I'm like, oh my god, this is what it feels like.
Oh, you've never seen it before?
No, I've never seen it before.
You're the me?
I'm the you. And it is like you are mentioned by name specifically, where Jeremy is like, oh my god, you're like the Drew in this relationship. And I'm like, yes, actually, that's exactly what's going on.
Okay, there's a part of me that was going to wait until I finished the X-Files to start watching Hannibal to listen along, but I might have to jump on and listen a little sooner than I expected.
Hannibal is like 10, 13 episodes per season, right? Like it's not a big time commitment. And there's like 3 seasons, so.
Good to know. This week, Patreon and Coffee supporters got to hear us answer the question, when was the last time you went camping? On the supporter-exclusive Impala Talk feed. You can go to carryingwayward.com to support us and claim your perks.
Are we ready for the recap of the week?
Ooh, I certainly am.
Fantastic. I'll count you down. 3, 2, 1. We have a dungeon.
Yeah, so they have a dungeon, which conveniently leads them to finding out that they also have recordings of potentially curing demons. What are the odds? The thing they needed in their lap. We'll pause there for a second because Cass, who's not really in a good spot right now with Dean, things are bad, decides to go out and try to make things better by buying food, snacks, booze, pornography, and pie. Where's the damn pie? Where he's then confronted by Metatron, where I actually stopped and took a screenshot because he actually calls him the Metatron once in that scene. I got the caption and everything.
I have stuff to say about that.
Anyways, he takes him to a cool brunch spot, introduces him to a Nephilim, which is a human angel hybrid baby that he has to kill because that's the trials to save heaven, because he's now going to try to get heaven saved. We'll deal with that later. We go back to the brothers, and they decide, oh, we have this evidence now, thanks to this priest who might be able to cure demons. Let's try it ourselves. Where do we have a demon? Oh, right, the super demon that we already know is more powerful than a regular demon, Abaddon. Let's just take her and then leave her unattended for a bit so she can escape. And then all this is happening, and Crowley is like using non-demonic ways to go back and murder all of their past saves in an attempt to like force them to give over the tablets. And it looks like it might be working, and holy crap, Crowley, big bad energy time.
This episode was written by Andrew Dabb, directed by Thomas J. Wright, and it originally aired on May 8th, 2013. This episode is kind of like a race. There's so much going on, right? And even like in terms of like the locations, like they're always moving, there's always something happening. There's a lot going on. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to talk about here.
Oh, for sure. Even just from like a watching it standpoint, it was one of those things where like every time a scene ended, I was like, wait, no, go back. I want to finish that like plot point. And then it's like something else. And I'm like, never mind. I want this now. And by the end of it, I feel like a kid with like the box of chocolates, and I'm just like, oh, it's done. Oh, my tummy's gonna hurt after this, but I still want more chocolate.
So this is the penultimate episode of season 8. Last episode, we noticed that a lot of themes were kind of pulling us back to the first 5 seasons of the show, and this episode definitely like brings back characters from earlier seasons, especially 3 of them. So we have Tommy, who they saved from a Wendigo in Wendigo. We have Jenny, who they saved from witches in Shut Up, Dr. Phil. And we have Sarah from Provenance.
Like, I was curious to see how many we'd get. Like, the fact that we got, like, 3 returns and, like, some pretty brutal deaths. Like, Crowley, like, I think at least I do, I can't speak for you, I underestimate Crowley because of how jovial and fun and theatrical he can be. But like when he turns up the evil, like holy shit.
One thing I really appreciate about Crowley is how like direct he is about this, right? He is like, this is what I want. You do what I want, I stop this, right? And this is something that I appreciate because I appreciated that in Benny as well, right? Remember when we were like, I was like, no, he's just trying to clear the air.
They're just being direct and telling it like it is because that's what people need sometimes.
I know. So, like you've been saying, it turns out that Crowley is basically killing off the people that Semendine have saved as a way to stop them from closing the gates of hell. As we can imagine, Crowley's not on board when it comes to closing the gates of hell.
They didn't need to go the extra mile with this, but the flavor of it not being demonic-related killings, and he's doing it all through witchcraft because he has, he says his mother was a witch.
Actually, this is really important. I should have put that in the long game.
Oh. I don't know what that means, but oh.
There you go. Cass is in the bunker for the first time in this episode.
That feels crazy to me. Like you say that, and I'm like, wait, really? Huh. I don't know why. It feels like he would have been invited in sooner.
Well, I mean, he hadn't been around. Like, he hadn't been around because he was still in purgatory, and then he hadn't been around because he was under the control of Naomi, and then he hadn't been around because he was trying to deal with things in his own way by hiding. And so really, this is the first time that he really gets to, like, reconnect with the Winchesters, apart from the time that he tried being a hunter. But I feel like, they were on a hunt, so...
But I you know what, like, not to drag on too long, but it's almost like I feel like the bunker has been there for so long that it's, like, weird to think about how much Cass has gone through in this, like, last season. And I feel like the bunker has been there the whole time. And, like, no, it's relatively new still.
The bunker, like, it's this season.
It's, like, it's, like, 5 episodes, maybe.
Dean and Cass are fighting.
I don't love it, but I understand it.
Sam and Dean discover the bunker has a dungeon, which is just amazing.
I was expecting something to be in there. I was like completely ready for the jump scare of like, there's been a demon stuck in here for God knows how many years alone. Like, and it was going to be a whole like thing, but like, no, not that. I made up fun things.
I mean, realistically, like this bunker would have been an extremely good place to kind of leave a supernatural creature to rot forever kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
We get an unhinged scene of Cass shopping for Dean at a gas station, which you described perfectly in your recap.
Yes. There's a small Rolodex of like clips or memes or like snippets of scenes that I've seen with no context. And I've actually seen this one animated on TikTok several times by different creators. And it is just like Cass grabbing this poor schmo behind the counter, demanding to know where the pie is. And I'm just like, What is the context for this? Now I have it and I love it.
Metatron's in public name is Marv.
It suits him so well. Like, it's so perfect.
He also basically manipulates Cass into agreeing to do the angel trials. And we find out that to cure a demon, you have to inject them with purified human blood, meaning the blood of someone who's just done confession.
Looking back, this feels like such a, like, MacGuffin of just, like, we need a Deus Ex moment of, like, how do we cure a demon? It just happens to be a thing they stumble upon. But, like, in the moment, in the episode, it's so interesting. It's such, like, a great bit of, like, digging into the lore and them actually looking into it, not just being handed it all, which they kind of are. But anyways, I love this. I love this.
Yeah, exactly. It feels a bit hammy, but I'm there for it. This is camp. I'm down for it.
Oh, yes.
So we get our first mention of Nephilims, which are the offspring of a human and an angel.
Now, I would like to take a moment here to make a prediction. Metatron makes it very clear this is the only Nephilim. I feel like they weirdly focus on that, so I'm calling bullshit. There are definitely more of them. This feels like, from a showrunning point, a weird thing to include if it's just going to be this one woman who gets murdered, and they never touch it again. So, very good foreshadowing potential theory.
Right. Well, we did have this kid who was like the offspring of a demon and a human, right? Like the Antichrist, who was Jesse, which still don't know what happened to him. So we know that these things are possible.
No need to confirm. I already believe it, and I will believe it till the end of season 15. Nephilims will be a big deal eventually for some reason.
Sam and Dean reassemble Abaddon because they want to cure her. Because, you know, in a previous episode, they had literally chopped her to pieces. But she escapes.
I don't think in a million years I would have jumped to the conclusion of, oh, they can just go dig up Abaddon and reassemble her and then try to cure her. I think it was already very clear based on other information they had from the other encounter that, like, she's not like other demons. Let's maybe not, you know, try this thing we've never tried before on, like, extreme hard mode.
Listen, I will never understand why these two seemingly smart, grown-ass men didn't just grab a demon off the street.
Yeah, like, I know they make a point later with Crowley where he's like, like, all demons are on, like, avoid you alert because I don't want you getting one to try to cure. I can't imagine finding the way they're depicted, finding another demon wouldn't have been difficult.
Absolutely not. This week, our theme is havoc, which comes from the early 15th century expression to cry havoc, which back then meant to give the signal to pillage. And it originally comes from Latin haber, which means to have, to possess. And then the meaning of chaos and devastation came out later in the 15th century. Now, the original reason why I picked this theme is because everything in this episode feels just really messy. Like, you know, those moments in life when you're just like, oh my God, this is such a mess. Well, this is this episode. Like, Sam and Dean have completely lost control of the situation. Like, they have like, I mean, I know that's not what this expression means, but like, they have lost the plot. Like, Abaddon is loose, Metatron is manipulating Cass, and Crowley is a serial killer. So I thought that it could be interesting to talk about, like, this episode through this theme, because, like, what else is there to talk about except for chaos and devastation here?
Love the origin of this. I always enjoy kind of that weird, like, where a word has a meaning and it's associated with something else, and then the effects of that thing become the meaning. Like, the idea of, like, if we're going to pillage a village, which is a hard thing to say, the resulting chaos could be tied to the term that was used for pillaging. Like, it's a very, I love kind of the lineage of this. I've recently fallen in love with a Reddit that is just maps of word and language.
That's so cool.
And it is addictive. This episode is so much chaos. Like, it really is just like everything that can go wrong goes wrong. And a bunch of people make choices that, like, I don't criticize the choice per se, but, like, in retrospect, I'm like, oh, there was better ways of doing this, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've already talked about that. Like, we haven't even gotten to the theme and we're already like, that was a bad decision in hindsight. And hindsight's 2020, yep. Right? Like, we agree with that. But like, that was just bad decisions. So let's break with tradition and start with Cass. He's had his life basically turned upside down again by Naomi. The first thing that we see him dealing with is his wound. He says that he's not healing as quickly as he'd hoped. And if we remember, like, Crowley shot him in the last episode with an angel bullet, right? So already that's kind of a huge thing for Cass. Like, he's never had a wound, like, not healing like that. And you can tell that he doesn't quite know how to deal with it. And he, like, deflects onto Sam, asking him, like, how he's doing, and just completely shifting the conversation to be about Sam's health and well-being.
I just need to say, like, the weirdest parallel I drew here in this scene is the ending of, which we brought up a while ago for some other reason, was Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, when Nathan Fillion's character gets injured for the first time in his life, and, like, being someone who's never felt pain before, it's, like, so traumatic for him, like, because you've never felt pain before. Cass has never been hurt or injured in a way where he wasn't just better eventually. But I digress, because he already has something, not right with him. So he tried to do a bit of a Dean move, which is to focus on things that he would otherwise be focused on if he were not injured. Sort of looking to move past it onto other subjects or topics, which is, again, very Dean. Which, again, is just what he's more comfortable with. Again, very Dean. And I'm sure Sam's suffering is of a higher stake right now. So it is genuine. Like, I don't think Cass is doing it, like, not with the actual intention of caring. But, like, it really is, like you said, it's shifting the focus to attempt to go back to regular almost.
Again, he's just trying to cope, trying to find normality. And for him, normality is, like, anything that's away from, like, his potential humanity, I guess.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that him and Dean are fighting. And now we've seen Dean and Cass fight before, and often at this point. And it's often a different variation of, like, you should trust me. No, you should trust me. And, like, again, this is no different, right? Like, we're going to talk about Dean a bit later, but Cass is basically saying to Dean that he's sorry and that he had to take the angel tablet and hide it, and that he thought that he was doing the right thing. And Dean is just having none of it, right? Like, it's very, very distressing for Cass, because just like with his health, like, he doesn't know what to do to repair that relationship. And I think that there's a part of him that finds it really upsetting that Dean is just kind of, like, ignoring him, right? Like, he knows how to deal with an angry Dean, an aggressive Dean, but, like, this kind of Dean must be, like, a whole brand new world of havoc for him, because, like, he's never seen it. And, it's like, I don't know what to do, because I've made him so angry that I don't even recognize his behavior anymore.
Yeah, this is like the parent is not upset but disappointed scenario. Like you said, Cass knows how to handle Dean's anger and emotions, but this kind of, like, silent treatment, it leaves Cass, like, actively freaked out. With, his injury, he can kind of move on, but Dean doing this to him regarding the actions he took with the tablet are too much and, like, really leave him unsure how to move forward.
Yeah, and he tries to fix it in the funniest way possible by going to a gas and sip and buying toilet paper, beer, porn, and threatening the cashier when he finds out that they no longer have pie. And it's like, Cass, please.
Oh my god. Like I said, another GIF I've seen, like, just pop up so many times. I'd be so happy to see it. But it has, like, a very cute, clueless boyfriend energy. Like, my girl's mad at me. I better pick up some flowers on the way home because that's the only way I know how to make things better.
I know, I just don't find that cute. But I get what you're saying.
It's cute for Cass because it's showing a level of, like, not sure how to deal with humans, but in a regular human who should know how to deal with humans, it's, no, not good.
Yeah, exactly. The one person who takes advantage of, like, all of this chaos in Cass's life is Metatron, right? Like, he finds Cass and he has a conversation with him until Cass feels comfortable talking to him about what's going on. And Metatron really uses Cass's weaknesses, right? Like, he seems to know that what Cass wants very, very much is peace in heaven and for the angels to go back to their original role of being like guides to humans. And he also knows that Cass needs redemption as well, like with Dean, with heaven, with himself. And that's how he sells him the angel trials, basically saying, like, the angels, heaven needs someone to come to the rescue. They need us. Yeah, just picture it. We ride to the rescue, save the day, make a great story. Look, the angels are a big dysfunctional family. We need to lock them all in a room until we work these problems out.
Called it Angel Tablet Closing Heaven. I don't think it was a hard pull to make given the Demon Tablet, but I'm just saying I was right. I'm not loving this side of Metatron. Like Cass does at one point say the Metatron, but I just need to again reiterate that I have vindication here a little bit. But like, yeah, Metatron is giving me like real manipulator vibes. Like you said it here, and I don't think in the moment I caught it as much, but on reflection, I don't like how he's positioning these trials and how he's just kind of like, I'm a weak little pencil pusher and need big strong Cass to save the day. Ooh woo.
And the thing is that it works, right? Like Cass ends up killing the Nephilim and he starts the angel trials. And we're just going to have to see like what the cost of all of that is going to be.
I mean, we have one episode left, so I assume this is going to spill over to next season somehow, because I feel like the trials may conflict with each other somehow, like a choice between save humanity by closing the gates of hell or save heaven by closing it and being better for everything in the long run. Like, I'm not sure where we're going. We have one episode left. I'm excited to see how this goes because it's interesting. I'm so like, I need the conclusion to this Cass story.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we'll see what happens in the next episode, and then I think that sets us up in a really interesting way for season 9 after that. So this episode is pretty plot and lore heavy. So I find that Sam and Dean have basically like one arc together. Like I said, when I talked about the theme, half of this episode is pretty much full of hope for the brothers. Like they know about like the third trial. They find a freaking dungeon, which makes Dean a little too happy in my opinion. They find out like how to do the third trial, and they find like they're a victim, right, for it. And that's when shit really goes downhill for them. Like Abaddon escapes, which just cannot be a good thing for anyone. And they start realizing that Crowley is hunting down the people that they saved over the years.
This side of Crowley, like both the like turning, because he doesn't turn off the Crowley charm, but he kind of like, he like turns the dial up almost. Like he turns the charm up along with the being evil up. And I was very intrigued by this. I had some really wild theories even in the first moments that like the reason they were all dying was because Sam was being erased by the trials and all of his past savings were like being undone, which I thought was a really cool idea. But I think the idea of Crowley going full on like son of like a switch mode and getting like super big bad evil like mode, it's so good. I also feel like it's such a like good weakness. Like Crowley is killing people every day, presumably. Like I can't imagine he's not just sending demons out to kill people on the regular. But because now it's people that the brothers have a connection to, it's somehow worse. Like suddenly the chaoticness of the evil becomes focused and personal.
Crowley has always described himself as a businessman. And so his whole goal is to get people to sign those contracts, right? Like what do they call, like the to make deals, right? To make a deal with the crossroads. Make a deal at the crossroads. There you go. Like, oh my God, I'm forgetting my supernatural lore. And so he has no real interest in just killing people, right? Like he just wants them to make deals. And so this is, you know, like you said, I think this is something that we haven't quite seen Crowley do before, but he has an end in mind and he is willing to take any means necessary. Now, Sam does have a bit of a moment with Sarah where she tells him that he feels different from when she met him. She says, "You're not the same. Look, it's been years and I can't even imagine the things that you've been through. But I don't know. You just seem more focused, confident, like you know what you want. Grew up, Sam." And if I have to try to tie this back to our theme, it sort of feels like maybe Sam's life has been so full of chaos and desolation that he hasn't really had time to notice that he went from being 22 to being 30. And it's also that he doesn't really have anyone in his life that knew him before he started hunting again, apart from Dean, of course. But Dean has been like with him for almost all the time, right, of the last 8 years. And so it's harder for him to notice these things. But for Sarah, like she sees it immediately in him.
To use a really weird example, my new puppy, she has doubled in size in just about 2 months, but like I don't see it because I'm so close. But like the folks who only get a few pics of her every couple of days or weeks, I've been better on the Discord, are seeing those changes with less granularity. Sam is puppy. The nature of his own existence and wild world he finds himself in, he doesn't have time to really and properly self-reflect and see himself. But Sarah seeing these snapshots so far apart of this man, it's literally night and day to her. She sees what he's become from what he was.
Exactly. And Dean has his very own little moment with Cass, of course, at the beginning of the episode, and they are fighting. Like we talked about this earlier, like this fight is nothing really new for them, but what is new for Dean is the fact that now he knows what it's like to be with someone who doesn't let you down. And I do mean Benny here. And so I can really completely understand that as much as he loves Cass, he's probably like, you know what? Fuck him. Fuck it and fuck all of it. Like, I mean, I hate to say it because I adore Cass, and ultimately I do think that he did think that he was doing the right thing, right? But Dean has higher standards now for himself. He wants someone who's going to talk to him about stuff like this and who's going to want to work it out with him, whereas Cass is replicating old patterns. So again, I think we're going to see where this havoc kind of takes us in their relationship.
Dean has learned what it is to be valued and respected in a relationship. And Cass is not meeting his new standards, and Dean is not settling. Good for him. I truly, truly pray and hope Cass gets his shit together and maybe some pie for good measure. And does become the man slash angel Dean deserves, because really, I'm with you. I love them. I want this to work. But I don't want Dean to like reduce his needs to meet Cass's, but rather Cass figure out how to be the man that Dean deserves.
If we move on to Crowley, he's an agent of chaos this week, right? Like he's the one literally wreaking havoc on the brothers' lives. He tells them that he's going to gut one person that they've saved every 12 hours until they bring him the demon tablet and abandon the trials to close the gates of hell. And one thing that I really want to mention here is just how organized he is about it. Like there's a shot of all the supernatural books on his desk, like so clearly. And what that means is that the King of Hell has been reading them in order to know who the brothers have saved, which also means that he's read the passage in the books where Dean is full frontal. And he knows exactly what the brothers are going to do in response, right? He says, about now, you're thinking of ways to stop me. You won't be able to, but you'll try because that's what you do. You try. So I think this shows that he knows just how far he's going to have to push, like the havoc, the pillaging of their lives and their saves and their wins, in order to get them to give in.
First, may I just give you a kudos on tying the whole havoc and pillage thing together? That was chef's kiss. Really just weird coincidence today listening to a podcast and was reminded of the show Dexter. And the thing that worked so well there was like the meticulousness and like the precision that went into killing, that it wasn't just like, for an episode that is so chaotic and it is creating so much havoc, that Crowley is not like he is so organized in a world of chaos. Like he can be such a good comedy and fun that we forget how maniacal he can be. And like I love that irony though, that the havoc he is bringing is through incredibly methodically planned out and strategic execution. Like nothing's scarier than a well-organized plan.
I'm only 6 episodes in, but I will liken him in this episode to Hannibal in the show Hannibal, because like he is so meticulous in his desire to create chaos for a specific is like for as a means to a specific end. I said last week that I wanted to talk about Sam's thoughts about being unclean and how he felt that the trials were purifying him. We haven't really touched on this since like the early seasons, actually, with the whole freak arc and the demon blood arc and all of that. And since then, like so much has happened that probably like furthered his belief that he's unclean. So I do want to offer like a content warning that I am going to be mentioning sexual assault in this segment. So if you'd prefer to skip it for now or for good, like just do so and take care of yourselves first, right? The first thing that I want to mention here is that Sam was possessed by Lucifer at the end of season 5. And I mean, like, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like, if the devil possessed me, I would probably also feel unclean afterwards or damaged or changed in some way. And then immediately after, like, his soul basically spent months in the cage with Lucifer, where Lucifer tortured him with physical torture, psychological torture, and presumably sexual torture as well. And I think, again, that it would make sense, or like at least that it would be very understandable for Sam to feel tarnished from all of that. And I'm not making a moral judgment or saying that he should feel that way, but I could understand that he would, right? Like it is a relatable feeling. And the third thing is having his body be out in the world without like his soul, basically, right? Causing all kinds of mayhem and doing a bunch of stuff that he had no idea about for a little while. And so even though we haven't really openly heard Sam saying that he feels unclean since like the early seasons, I'm really not surprised that this theme is being brought back in the story, because like we've seen Sam doing everyday things that kind of align with the idea of like purifying one's body, quote unquote, like the way he eats, the way he exercises. And again, I don't think that you can purify your body by eating clean, but I can definitely see the appeal of trying to take control of something that you have no real control over.
For a season that has done a really interesting job of like pulling on threads from way back in the early seasons, this episode very bluntly doing it with the deaths we have at Crowley's hands, or witchcraft, to then have this pull back to what I like pre end of season 5, like that early season 5 era Sam's, you know, the demon blood arc, as you said, and then following it up with the very tumultuous time he had with Lucifer in the cage. It does a really good job of telling us Sam's story without being blunt about it. This week we have a message from Callie. Before we listen to it, we want to remind you to send us a 3-minute voicemail. To respond to anything we discussed today or ask us a question, you can use the recording app on your phone and email us that recording at carryingwayward@gmail.com.
Hi, Marie and Drew. It's Callie. My pronouns are they, she. And if you remember, I sent in the voice recording for Justin Bello in season 3. So yeah, I'm just sending in another one. And what prompted me to send this in was the release of Taylor Swift's The Tortured Poets Department. And now that I'm recording this message, it's been out for about 2 weeks. And I'm starting to see more and more Supernatural and like Taylor Swift edits on TikTok. And so I was wondering, like, one, which Taylor Swift songs do you associate with certain characters in Supernatural? Because like that has just been rattling in my mind. And like, it doesn't matter if it's like, oh, it's really just like this character like during the situation, or if you're like, no, this song is like specifically these two characters in this situation, like whatever. I just want to know like what Taylor Swift songs do you associate with Supernatural and like Supernatural characters. And it doesn't have to just be from Tortured Poets Department. She has a massive discography, so feel free to choose a song from any album, any era, if you will. And I guess like my second question, and for background on my second question, there's another podcast that I listen to pretty frequently. It's called Lore Olympod. It's about the webtoon Lore Olympus, which is a modern retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth. And so they did an episode where they said, if we were to turn Lore Olympus into a jukebox musical, like, what would that look like? And what songs would we do? They did it with Britney Spears songs. But if you feel like you have the energy, and maybe it's not all of Supernatural, I know that we haven't gotten there, so maybe just like if you were to do a jukebox musical based off of, let's say, the first 5 seasons of Supernatural, and it was like a Taylor Swift Supernatural jukebox musical extravaganza, like, what would that look like? What songs would you put in what part of the story? So yeah, it kind of goes together with like my first question, which is like, which songs do you associate with which characters? I don't know if this was kind of convoluted. Yeah, my mind is kind of in like a go state right now, so I'm sorry if my words weren't clear. But yeah, I hope to hear more from you guys, and my username pretty much everywhere is Goblin Babe Callie. So if you see that username, that's me interacting with your stuff. So yeah, love the show, love you guys. Bye.
Callie, thank you so much for this really thoughtful question. This is like the second Taylor Swift question that we've gotten in, like, actually, yeah. No, maybe even more. I think we really need, I've been planning this special, this like Swiftie Natural special for a while now. I really need to get on that and get it done, because I have been thinking about it, and then Tortured Poets Department came out and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So it's in the works. It exists somewhere on our Google Drive, and we will get it done at some point. So you specifically mentioned Tortured Poets Department, and so I figured that I would take the liberty to pick 3 songs, one for Dean, one for Sam, one for Cass, specifically from this album, because I know that we've answered this question before. So just to kind of give like new content, I suppose, to everybody. That's how I'm going to do it for Tortured Poets Department. So for Dean, I would like to assign But Daddy, I Love Him, because that's something that, especially for this season, that like I've referenced, right? Especially with Benny and in the, what is it called? There's the episode with Martin, right? Like the episode where Benny has like, I forget the title of it, but that's the one that I'm thinking of. For Cass, especially with this episode, I'm thinking about I'm Gonna Get You Back, right?
Yes.
Which is just, I love. And then for Sam, The Prophecy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right. It's so sad. I'm sorry. Now, you asked a second question, which is like the jukebox musical of like Taylor Swift extravaganza, which I absolutely love. So I'm actually going to pick songs that like from all of her discography that I think really fit the first 5 seasons for Dean, Sam, and Cass. So for Dean, I would pick This Is Me Trying, because I think that this song is one of the songs that like reminds me of Dean the most. For Sam, I would pick Antihero, because I find that, especially in the first 5 seasons, like this is what's going on with him, right? Like feeling like he's on the outside for basically everything, and, wanting to be something that he's not, and that he's been made to be, right? Like that the person that he is, Taylor Swift describes herself as not a person anymore. It's hard for her to feel like a person. And I think that Sam can definitely relate to that. And so I think that Antihero would work really, really well, especially for young Sam. And then for Cass, My darling Cass, I did something bad because, my God, yes, that's what he learns to do, basically. Or no, not even true, because now we know that he has been doing something bad for quite some time. That's why he's been reprogrammed so many times. But Dean really brings it out of him. And so, yeah, there you go.
Those are such stellar choices. There is some overlap, I'll be honest. I've always said I am really bad when it comes to like just music knowledge in general. So like I can pick out so many like Taylor Swift songs, but can never tell you like which line from which song from which album. But I did pick out a few that like always stuck with me that have like clicked immediately with like whether they would be part of a jukebox musical. One that I can really see like a really cute vignette of like Cass singing it about Dean, but Dean also singing it about Sam is I Can Fix Him. Really, I can.
Oh no.
I could see that like a like cute duet where they're both singing it independently, but we're seeing both their shots of it and both like what they're talking about, and like, oh, it kills me. Another one, and I think you had brought it up way back when in one of our things, but it's one that has stuck with me so hard, is someone put the first appearance of Cass to Sparks Fly.
Yes. Oh, that's really good. Yes, I know. I love that. I love that fan cam. It's so good.
One of my favorite albums is Folklore. It's one of the few where like I can pick out the songs that I will do and repeat many, many times for both happy and sad reasons. But This Is Me Trying was definitely like this is just it fits in so many scenarios for this dang show. I also felt like Ivy could work in a jukebox musical. I could kind of see that like feeling stuck kind of like is something that comes up enough. In the first 5 seasons, I could see it kind of with Dean and like feeling like he can't move on or move forward and he's kind of stuck in a rut. I don't know. It has an energy that I feel like works with it. But it's like a really fun concept. Like I want someone who has like more musically minded talent and like thought to like put this together. Like I think I'd have fun doing it, but I would love to almost hear someone with like more of a musical theater background do this. But what a fun concept, what a fun conversation this led to. Callie, thank you. And yes, I have seen your name pop up in our socials, and every time I do, I always get a giggle at that username, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Callie. It's now time to reflect on this episode. Drew, what is your reflection and call to action?
This is gonna come across super weird, but I need to get better at planning shit. Like, I have trouble keeping track of my schedule on like a single weekend, even with a calendar and a very organized wife and partner. But damn it, Crowley can coordinate and time manage all of his evil deeds so well. Like, I wish I were that good at being organized and schedule driven, not, the murder stuff. And like finding some way to kick my ADHD ass brain into like working even half as well as him.
Honestly, for me, this episode is making me think about the highs and lows of life and how quickly things can just turn around. And at the end of the last episode, it really seemed like everything was kind of like falling into place and the brothers knew like what they had to do, and now everything is a mess. And so I feel called to kind of remember that sometimes life just feels like that, and it's okay. Like, just do what you can.
Honestly, good advice for myself, for everyone. Yeah. Thank you. This was Carrying Wayward, a supernatural podcast produced by Rochelle Castellano, hosted by Marie Vigouroux and myself, Drew Schulman. Thank you to everyone supporting us on Ko-fi or Patreon, especially our bunker supporters, Elle, Jeremiah Thomas, and Simone. We'd also like to thank Jake Lionheart for our music, and Jacqueline Tucci for additional sound editing. Head over to carryingwayward.com to become a patron or a Ko-fi subscriber, and for our merch store and socials. and rate us a review on Apple Podcasts. Carry on, our wayward friends.